Today we're going over Courtney Pine, and we're going to talk about context of the time, which is the 1960s, and we're also going to talk about his personal life and how that affects his influences. So Courtney Pine was born in 1964 and started composing at around about the 80s. So painting a picture of what jazz was like in the 80s, here's a quote from Miles Davis, who says, "Jazz in the early 1980s was becoming the music of the museum." And then it goes on to say that Courtney Pine was a man who really was committed to reverse that trend. And he does so through introducing different influences such as pop, reggae, hip-hop. He inspired and promoted a new generation of young black musicians. So by these sort of quotes, you can paint the picture that he was really broadening music's appeal for a new generation. There's another quote from John Cumming, who's the co-director of the London Jazz Festival, and it goes like this: "He hasn't stood still. Throughout the history of jazz, there has been a resistance to new energy that might take music in an unfamiliar direction. The reaction to bebop, to Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie in the 40s was probably as severe as what Courtney faced." So through this quote you can see that what John Cumming is saying is that Pine is working against a very conservative audience, resist against his new ideas that brought jazz back to life. Looking at his influences, as previously mentioned, reggae, hip-hop, Asian, and pop were some genre influences, but also his personal influences such as Miles Davis and John Coltrane, as well as Sonny Rollins. In fact, Lady Day is actually a tribute to one of his two favourite 20th century jazz performers, and that includes Billie Holiday and Coltrane. Looking at Pine's personal background and personal life, his parents are from the Caribbean island of Jamaica, which has a large focus on reggae music, but recently he's been focusing more on hip-hop styles rather than reggae. Looking at back in the day, it includes a lot of features found in hip-hop, rap, and he also uses turntable effects. He's a multi-instrumentalist, so he knows how to play tenor and soprano saxophones, flute and bass clarinet, and he also worked as a DJ, so he has honed those skills in too. Back in the Day is Courtney Pine's 10th album, and there's a quote from him saying that he wanted to approach it like a DJ, remixing himself, thinking about tempo and beats, not just scales and keys. So through this quote you can highlight how he was trying to make all aspects of the music almost equal. Just an extra bit about the context of the time. So around this time, multi-track recorders were becoming extremely popular. So multi-track recording techniques allowed for sound engineers to create sounds that wouldn't be able to be created live. And for some possible links to the Beatles, you can talk about how the era of when Pine was composing was an era of psychedelic music. So a lot of recording try to mimic the effect of taking drugs. Examples of this could include instruments being played backwards or panning the music from side to side, and the introduction of digital equipment like mixing desks, synths and sequencers facilitated a DIY generation and allowed for tiny independent record labels. So essentially, the availability of software effects allowed for bands to record an album with simply just a microphone and a laptop, which again links to how he promoted a young black generation of musicians. So that's some background on Courtney Pine. I hope it helps, and I hope you can use some of this stuff in the EdExcel exam.